Joined live now by the Shadow Veterans Affairs Minister, Barnaby Joyce. Barnaby, good to see you. Thanks for your time. So the breaking news out of the US this morning, the State Department has approved the sale of the 220 Tomahawk missiles to Australia. It's worth about $1.3, $1.4 billion worth of kit. Your thoughts on that this morning?
It's good. It gives real potency. A Tomahawk missile can go around about 1,600 kilometres, maybe slightly more. Delivers around about a 450 kilo payload. So you could set one off from Danglemar and land it in Adelaide. Not that you'd want to do that, but that gives you a sense of how you have the capacity to sit off the coast or to approximate yourself to a target that is a long way away and still hit it. Now, it's obviously not a nuclear weapon, and no one's ever proposing that we get those. But it gives real potency in our delivery. And this is all part of making Australia as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. But we've got to do it in defence, we have to do it in manufacturing, we have to do it in agriculture, we have to do it right across the board to deal with the circumstances that Australia finds itself in today. And it was very well to listen to Mr. Keating the other day in his sort of loquacious, voluble babble, but he's off the mark.
I will get to that in a second, but just with the Tomahawks, is this just an example that, you know, the Americans' word is good?
I think the Americans on both sides of the aisle understand the circumstances of the world as we find it now, and so do we. And this is a great endorsement that AUKUS is not just about submarines. It is about a whole range of platforms and interoperability between major forces that most definitely have the capacity to bring a sense of security to Australia, which we wish was not the case. But unfortunately, circumstances as we find them before us require us to do precisely this.
OK, well, back to Keating now. And Malcolm Turnbull's actually joined him yesterday in dissing the AUKUS deal. Malcolm Turnbull said this version will be slower and this will be slower and more expensive than his deal with the French. Is he right?
Look, Mr. Turnbull had the opportunity himself. I mean, the Barracuda class submarine that he was organising with the French has the capacity to be a nuclear submarine. In fact, the one he organised to buy had to be go from a nuclear submarine and then recalibrated, remanufactured back to a diesel submarine. Now, I never sat in one meeting with former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull where he suggested that we should have nuclear French submarines, not one. So it's all very well for him to pop up now and say, well, you know, these are the wise things I would have said, because he didn't say them at all. And we always get this from some former Prime Ministers, not all, where, you know, some people, when they're Prime Minister, it's not about how they acted, it's how they rode the horse, it's how they got off it and went to the rail and watched the rodeo as a polite and sort of dignified person. But some people just can't help themselves, and rather than get off the horse, they leave one foot in the stirrup and get dragged around in the horse manure with everybody laughing at them. And we're seeing a couple like that. They have to say crazier things to get themselves on television. And Mr. Keating's, as a voluble babble the other day, was a classic example of that.
OK, we've got to pay for it. Cuts will be needed. Where would you like to see trims?
Well, there's a whole range of things we should start looking at. The NDIS is out of its envelope. It's looking like it's going to be bigger than Medicare. The NDIS in so many areas, it looks like, you know, we're moving to a huge raft of people who are apparently on the NDIS, which it wasn't designed for. When you see people in wheelchairs with quadriplegia, with you know, schizophrenia, with serious impediments, we understand that's what the NDIS is for. But it's grown to such a way that, you know, we've got a whole range of people saying, well, I'm on the NDIS. Now, for every person on the NDIS, there's another person called a taxpayer who has to pay for it. And I think this has to be tightened up in such a way as it's sustainable, as it can go into the future. Because if it's not sustainable, it doesn't matter whether the Labor and the Greens are in power or the Liberals and the Nationals are in power, it'll stop. It'll fall over. It'll be the end of it. So there's a good place to start. And here's a really important one. You've got to make this economy hum. You've got to earn money. It's not just about cuts, it's about earning money. So don't say crazy things like we're going to stop our coal exports or stop our gas exports or stop our capacity to open up new gas fields or shut down all our coal-fired power stations. Because they're all the ways you lose money. That's how you make your business weaker. That's how you make your treasury weaker. That's how and the only other place, if you do that, if you're sort of so torn with virtue that's come home with the kiddies from school, is your taxes. You just have to pay through. You have to pay more money out of the money that you get from your pay packet. So make our nation as strong as possible, as quickly as possible, in every facet that it operates, and we'll earn the money to be able to pay for things such as nuclear submarines into the future, which we have to do, because otherwise your nation is not defended.
Well, just on nuclear energy now, and Mark Latham, he might end up holding the balance of power in the upper house after next weekend, and nuclear is going to be top of his agenda. Whenever this question is put to the federal Labor Party, they shut it down when it comes to nuclear energy. But is this the opportunity now to get that debate going if we've got nuclear subs on the way?
Yes. Well, they're the small modular reactors, which highly enriched uranium in them, and the Australian people didn't blink. They didn't blink. It's made. What happens if one of those nuclear submarines comes in, turns on the light so people don't trip as they're going onto the dock? Then you'll have nuclear power. What are you going to say? Sorry, you've got to turn on your lights as you come into Wollongong Harbour. Is that what's going to happen? Because we can't have nuclear energy? It's ridiculous. We dig it up, Peter. We semi-process it. We take it through the middle of the town, but we think it's immoral to use. But then it gains morality as it passes over salt water to go to India or to Japan to be used. But now we're saying, and they are saying, we have to take the rubbish back and bury it in Australia. So we do every part of this equation except use it ourselves. And there's such an opportunity with, I would say, hundreds of billions, possibly trillions of dollars of investment of high-paying manufacturing jobs developing small modular reactors, which the Japanese are doing, the Canadians are doing, the Americans are doing, the Chinese are doing, the Russians are doing, the French are doing, the Scandinavians are doing, Rolls-Royce, Hitachi, Skoda, Mitsubishi, General Electric, Westinghouse. All these really stupid companies, which Mr. Bowen talks about, these really silly people. And apparently the only wise ones are us.
Yeah.
No, we should be part of this industry as well and developing it, because we'll need these technicians as well. What's going to happen to the people who are trained to use as nuclear technicians on the submarine when they decide to get out of the Navy? What are they going to do? Or run a milk bar? I don't know. Come up here to Danglemar and help me mark cattle.
It's an interesting idea, nuclear gaining morality as it drifts further away from Australia. Barnaby, we're out of time. Appreciate it, though. We'll talk to you again soon.